Good evening, Jennifer. Good evening, Vicky. Good evening, Carla. How is everyone?
Good,
You know,
good. But I'm going to be off for a minute because we're trying to get it on our big screen.
understood. I think we're going
Yeah.
to give a couple minutes for people to get on. I think we have a challenge that there's a replay and people are taking advantage of the replay and not participating.
I do that a lot.
Yeah, I get it. I understand. And with you, if you guys could see if you could see the membership map, I mean, we really have people from four different time zones and a couple international people. And so I get where time becomes an issue. We need to figure out the best time to be able to do this. But this one tonight is an important conversation in my mind. So I hope people take the time to watch it again. And for you guys, feel free to butt in. That's the whole point of the community and telling me what's going on. It's not a matter of just me sitting here talking. Oh, look at the map. So the I think you guys all know I live in Indiana and I spent my entire life here. So having the representation be spread out across the country, that equally is kind of surprising. But it is a large map, and we've got a lot of people that are obviously interested in the conversation. Um, just need to keep on going. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, just because I like to stay on time, and that's part of the deal. And we'll do this with the recording side for other people to listen to. But please, you're here, and if any of you guys have questions or comments, that's what it is. This is not designed to be a lecture, so feel free to say, "Hey, this happened to me," or "What do you think about this?" or however. So I will go ahead and get started. Other than that, good evening, everybody. Grab your cup. I have mine. Tonight we're talking about the decisions that nobody collapsed for. They're the unpopular ones, and because here's what I've learned in almost every over a 40-year period of time, almost every challenge to your financial dignity, and when I say that, I mean inside of yourself or outside, coming from other people, comes down to one of three things. It's how we spend, how we invest, and how we give. Those are the big three that will challenge your financial dignity at one point in time. But life is bigger than money. As a financial planner, that's sometimes hard to say, but it is so very, very true. When it comes to your dignity and peace in the family, there is a fourth, and that is what you do. So today, in case you didn't notice, there's a different background. They haven't been able to monkey with that or change it yet. I'm at my place in Mexico. And, it's interesting. If my mother knew that I played golf for 27 holes in the Mexican heat today, I'm sure that she would panic. Yet my friends, Tarna up there from Las Vegas, goes, "What's the big deal?" The further you are away from actually understanding the impact, the easier it is to judge and to be scared of. In the article, Unpopular Decisions, I wrote about rattlesnakes. I gave up hiking this year, just because I don't want to hurt my knees hiking instead of golfing. I prefer that more. But whenever I go to Arizona, whether it was a rim to rim hike on the Grand Canyon, whether it was the Arizona desert, people who've never been to the Arizona desert were always worried about me encountering a rattlesnake. And I've got 500 miles logged in that heat on those trails. I've yet to see a rattlesnake. They're there. I know they're there, but they're as scared of me as I am of them, and it's just not an issue. So when it comes to this fourth part of dignity, it really is what we do, the things that we take on or stop doing or decide to change. And tonight, I really don't want to hand you a warning. That's not what this is about. I want to hand you a choice. Because if you're here, you've reached a point most people never do. You actually have choices. Congratulations. Let's make this one, one to keep a happy Thanksgiving for you. So, the genesis of the conversation, where did it start? I always go back to that. And every decision has a beginning. It has an impetus, something that a reason that it started. People get fixated on the decision itself and forget the purpose that's underneath it. I think that part is important for us to understand. And we lose the why we're doing something, and the decision runs away from us. Tonight isn't about the topics, it's about staying connected to the reasons under each one. So, for the whole hour, I want you to hold every big decision you've had, made, or going to make in the future up against what was the impetus, what started it, and does this choice still serve that original decision? We can go off the ropes very, very quickly. I'm sure you all read the article, but I'm going to give you the beginning of it. There's four roots, if you will, branches of every decision you're going to make. And like I said, nearly every challenge to your dignity traces back to one of these four roots. The first three being about money. When I say spending, people sometimes lose track of that. Spending isn't just what goes out. Spending is also the people who hoard money, who refuse to spend. Now, I have people that remember, I'm a financial planner. We manage more than $1 billion for other people. I've got people who have never spent much money in their entire lives. So their judgment, if you will, their normal mode of operation is simply not to spend. I've got other people, I'm not sure how they wound up with money because they were they were overachievers when it came to spending, if you will. But when I look at spending and I talk about it affecting people's financial dignity, it's something with the amount of money that's going out or not enough of it going out. The lack of willingness to spend money on yourself. And many times you will hear your kids say, Mom, Dad, you saved this. We want you to use it. And in your mind, what you're hearing is, yeah, but I would like to leave something behind. In their mind, they often hear, you think that we're counting on our inheritance. And it really is kind of a battle between the two. Investing is really what you put at risk, whether that's understanding there's 13 economic risks to money. The loss of principal is only one of them. Liquidity, market risk, currency risk, the loss of principal, credit risk. There's a bunch of them that really need to be consumed. And what happens to people many times later in life is they become fixated on one of those. Often it's one of two risks. It's the risk of maintaining principal at all cost or having absolute growth at all cost. They're 180 degrees apart. They don't obviously occur in the same people, but many times they do occur in the same household. Giving, this is the third one, and it's what you give to others. It's what one spouse chooses to gift to children. It's a suddenly new big charity that entered into the world that you'd never had before, that you'd never given money before, that you're giving it away. It's changing. But the fourth one, remember, and this is more dignity of life, really is the actions you take or stop taking. It's moving, it's traveling, it's remarrying, it's taking on something, it's letting something go. Doing matters. We talked about money dignity comes from the first three, but life dignity and family peace really come from the fourth. So several of the big seven issues really aren't money decisions. They're doing decisions that carry financial consequence. A change in what you do is often the most visible sign in a shift in judgment. And that lands us right in the fourth bucket below. So the four buckets that I talked about, that I would like to talk with you guys about from your experience. Remember, all of this is stuff that I learned from more than 2,500 families over 38 years. My only expertise is a whole lot of observation. I've got to watch people as they've changed as adults to grandparents to great grandparents to suddenly pass away later in life. So those four buckets that we have to deal with, it's when a decision worries the people around you, it lands in one of four buckets. Three of the four, and hear me on this, three of the four issues are not your problem. They are other people's discomfort. Only the fourth signal is worth watching, measuring, monitoring, being smart about it. So that first bucket is you going against conventional, whatever that happens to be, wisdom. But conventional may have never been how you lived in the first place. If you look at my life, starting a business at 21 is not conventional. Leaving a job with a pension to go start a company is not conventional. And I'm sure many of you have done things that are quote, unquote, not conventional to the norm. And yet, as we age, if we do things that are not conventional, many times people will say, "Hey, you're exhibiting irrational behavior, or you're showing a loss of judgment," and that is just not the case. Now, you're always going to have to deal with other people's opinions if you really care, right? You want to keep families content where you possibly can, but that doesn't mean you live your life for other people. I have started this program, and I will end this program talking with you about documenting how your decision making process works. And when you can sit down and document and say, here's how I felt about this, here's what I believe to be true about the decision I made, and here's the quantifiable proof that I can offer if I think it's a great idea. That's the three things that you're going to record about this decision. And you don't have to ever share that with me. You don't have to share it with your kids. You don't even have to share it with your spouse. I do that a lot in some of the decisions that I make that are quote unquote unconventional, especially when it comes to hiring people or making business decisions, or even buying this place in Mexico, which was clearly not conventional behavior for somebody in Anderson, Indiana. Clearly not acceptable to my mother. All of the risks, the cartel, all of the danger, you can only imagine. I mean, right, the problems that we have down here. I'm looking out. I'm not seeing a lot of those problems. So that was all sarcasm. But people are going to say that you've done something against conventional wisdom, and really, that is their problem. It's not your problem. The second one, and this is a big one, is you take a risk or a perceived risk that other people wouldn't take. Risks get exaggerated by people standing outside the thing they're judging. I gave you the rattlesnake example. I'm also a scuba diver. And I will tell you, if you don't watch Shark Week, you would understand that sharks are really kind of cool. I intentionally go try to find them underwater. And it scares the living dickens out of people who have never been scuba divers in their entire lives. They've seen Jaws, they've seen Shark Week, right? They're scared to death of sharks. It makes absolutely no sense, but that's just people's behavior or lack of understanding. They worry about some of the things that I do. They're going to worry about some of the things that you do. And truthfully, it's their problem, not yours. Here's a big one, and this one was where money really begins to overlap. You choose to do something or stop doing something that your beneficiaries would not have chosen. In other words, the money train has its own fears. Remember, issues are not the same as concerns. Good planning can handle issues, but it's not your problem. It is really their problem. Now, here's where it gets salty. And this is why you really need to do yourself a favor, not for me, not even for your spouse if you really don't want to share it, though. I will assure you some great conversations can come out of these pieces if you follow that formula. We all have biases. I started my radio show back in 1998, and I would teach financial planning, and I would end the title. I would end the show by saying the truth without bias and answers you could rely on. And I finally had this engineer call me, and he said, "Joe, I've been taking care of him for almost 30 years now." He said, "Joe, everyone has biases. You just do. You have things that you believe to be true that you don't even know why you believe to be true, but they're baked into how you do decision making. And he was probably the first one that got me studying the art of decision making. And I will fess up, I'm a nerd. I actually spend time thinking about how I think about things. I always have. It's part of it is the process of what it is we're doing here. Part of it is I want to know how I got to the decisions that I arrived at and make sure that I'm on the same track. And so they get documented. But I really do my best to write down everything that I believe to be true about something. So you can bet your bottom dollar that I wrote down everything that I believe to be true about a Hoosier moving to Mexico, as opposed to the things my mother would have chosen, like Florida or like Arizona. I wrote down everything that I believe to be true, some of the biases that I had. The people down here are great. Food, in my mind, is made with less processed garbage in it. But all of those biases, the real meat of it. And then I wrote down what is true, not what I believe, but what do I know is true about moving to Mexico? The good, the bad, and the ugly. Because there are some challenges. It's a different tax code. There are different things that I have to deal with. The technology that I'm using tonight sometimes goes out more often than it does at home. There are issues, right? There's things. And then I get down to the third thing and say, is there any way, any math where I can quantifiably say this is a good or bad decision? So I write that down and I've kept it. And in 10 years, when I do something else that somebody is going to say, Joe, that is that is crazy. I'm going to say, was it out of character for how I've lived my life? And they're going to have to answer that. And I have worksheets of that I've done that I will encourage you guys to do, that document how I did it in the past. The answers are not always going to be popular. That's why it's called unpopular decisions, but it's a way to go. You want to make sure that when you go against the grain, that it's against the grain of conventional wisdom, not against the grain of your own history. If you made decisions very slowly and suddenly you're making them very quickly, that is a change of character. Has nothing to do with memory. It has to do with judgment changing. If you used to make decisions very calmly and suddenly you're getting more frustrated, more irritable, which certainly happens to yours truly, that is part of that subtle shift that we're talking about. And it's why if you document things, if you just take a step back, you've got some stuff written down, no heavy breathing, as we say at the other company, no heavy breathing. And you can make sure without anybody else getting in your way that you're following suit of what you need. But the challenge is making sure that you are not going against the grain of your own history. And hear me on this. That means not what you've always done, the thing you never would have done before, right? Um, it's you want to watch when that change conflicts with who you were and why it matters. Well, judgment tends to shift before memory ever slips. It's a quiet thing. The pointed fear, it's awareness. Self-awareness and observation are the whole skill that we're really working on tonight. All right, so the big seven that wreck Thanksgivings. These are the ones that I have seen. And if you're new to the group and you've not heard me talk about a happy Thanksgiving, I recognize, and I really do not mean to offend anyone when I talk about it. I know not everybody grew up in a family where they had happy Thanksgivings. They didn't want to go, they were forced to go, or they had a drunk or a violent person there, and it was just conflict and chaos. And I grew up in a world with no money, a world with a lot of education, but a whole lot of love. And we would often have 50, 60 people at our Thanksgivings and more food than anybody could possibly ever eat. And it was just a period of time to be able to share gratitude. And so that's etched in my mind. And in the early parts of my career, I watched, I can't even count the number. I can give you 10 families that no longer speak to one another because dad died. All over processes inside of the legacy planning being less than clear. You've probably read or heard me talk about China dolls, fishing poles, and golf clubs, things that have no real financial value, but have massive experiential value to people who did or didn't get the things that they did. So with the four buckets in hand, remember that's going against conventional wisdom, somebody else's risk, or a beneficiary thinking you're blowing all of their money. The fourth is you're out of character. With those in mind, um, let's talk about the big four that you need to be prepared for, and just know that these are the ones that are there. And just because they're a risk, by the way, doesn't mean you do not do them. It just means the perception of other people are great enough that you want to be prepared to have conversations with them ahead of time. If you want to eliminate chaos, you can either be fortunate enough to have somebody in your family who begins the conversation, or you can hang around and never have the conversation until it's too late, or you can start the conversation. And I tend to be more proactive. Um, I'm probably not the most qualified person in the world to be talking about aging with clarity, but nobody else really wanted to do this, right? It is a hard conversation to realize we don't have pathological problems. We don't have genetic breakdowns. We have aged knees, gray hair, right? And we're getting to the point where our brain is no different. It it is aging. And that doesn't mean that we're losing memories. It doesn't mean that we're making mistakes. It doesn't mean anything else, but it needs to be managed. I never thought in 59 years of my life that going downstairs would be more painful than going up. I mean, come on. Who would have thought, right? And yet here we are. So number one, this is the number one thing that I've seen create chaos for people, and that is moving from your principal residence. You making a change. Now, this is especially true if your kids grew up in that house, right? So we have to recognize that it's our money, it's our lives. We're not here to satisfy or serve other people. Yet at the same time, other people have emotional attachments to the decisions that we're going to make. I would never, and I didn't think about this. It was 8 years ago. I bought a new house and my kids informed me after the fact because I move very quickly. That's part of my not conventional wisdom. My kids informed me after that that I should have talked to them before I sold my house. I thought that was somewhat humorous. 8 years later, studying this, learning more about aging with clarity, I realized um, I could have probably done more to help them with the emotional detachment of leaving that place and going to the new place. Was it any of their business? No. Did it have anything to do with of lack of judgment on my part? No. That one was lack of awareness. But just know if you're going to put a long-term house that you've owned, especially if somebody has passed away, your husband, 70% of the time, remember, ladies, the husbands go first. Right? 70% of the time in a long-term marriage, the husbands go first. Right. So many times you're making this decision without that. Guys, if you're a widower, you're a rarity. But understand those challenges that are there when you move out of the house or what's going on. The second, again, these for some reason or another, the big two involve a lot of emotional attachment and relationships, and it's remarriage. Whether you had a long-term marriage and a spouse passed away, or whether it was somebody got a divorce and got remarried, those lead to emotional challenges. Again, the beneficiaries are a big part of this. That money train issue comes into question a lot. There's going to be judgment. There are certainly biases. You're in the mind of the beneficiary. You're replacing somebody that was attached to so many of those experiences. Some of you have been through this. I get a lot of messages from people in the community that are private as opposed to shared within the group. I never feel bad about sharing. It's a group where you guys are all going through these kind of issues and these kind of challenges. But just be prepared. I'm not sure if something happened to me, that I'm actually am sure if something happened to me, I would not want my wife to be single the rest of her life. That makes no sense to me. My daughters may have a different story. They may have an entirely different feeling about that. Who knows? But leaving your principal, moving from your principal residence, remarriage would be the big two. This third one may surprise you, but it goes to that category of you accepting risk that other people wouldn't accept. And it's international travel. It's you've spent all of your life in Indiana or California or Nevada or New York or wherever we saw that map from where all you guys are from across the country, actually across the globe. Um, but people who've never been out of the country worry about people who are leaving the country. People who have never been on a missions trip worry about people who are going on a missions trip. Things that make no sense at all. And again, in my mind, none of this should prevent you from making that trip, from making those decisions. I just understand the more you can communicate up front, the fewer challenges you will have on the backside. The fourth one, this gets into the money world, and it clearly is a period of time where judgment comes into question. And to be frank with you, and many times it should come into question. And it's personal loans. It's where you've got money in an account, and one of your children can't get a loan at a bank and comes to you and says, "Mom, Dad, I would like to borrow money." And there's a reason the bank said no. And your kids have tons of reasons why the bank should have said yes and why they're rotten and why they're clearly being mistreated and there's just something they don't understand. And I've watched parents make loans that sometimes make sense, but many times the damage done between multiple children when you have multiple children and you make a loan to one, the other kids have an entire different bias or entire different viewpoint of what it is you've given them. And I will just tell you, making personal loans from a financial planning standpoint can sometimes make sense. Loaning your kids money at 6%, which is more than what you would get in a bank, but less than the 18% that the high end lenders are wanting to charge them, makes sense for a family to be able to consider and do that. If it is not documented, if it's not well thought out, you can expect one of those four buckets or multiple of those buckets, right? It's against conventional wisdom. It's against a risk that I would take. It's not what the beneficiaries would want. And you would have never done this in the past, right? Your judgment is going to get challenged. So think it through clearly. Doesn't mean you don't do it, but just think it through it clearly, write it down, go through the process, follow the rules, and you'll be fine. A large charitable gift is the next one. Now, that I will tell you is especially true if you have never dealt with that charity before. If this is a new organization or a new organization that has come into your life and a large charitable gift is made, or is considered being made, your judgment will be questioned, and you really want to take the time to document it. I will. I've been on many boards, and I will tell you that it's nothing uncommon that they put people with not a lot of knowledge in their fiduciary responsibility on that board. They put people on the board that they believe can make large charitable gifts. And when you're emotionally confronted with the challenges that that charity's coming with, or you're on a church board, it's easy to justify writing a check or saying, hey, this is something that we need to do, something that we need to consider. Just be careful when you do that if you're making a large charitable gift. Funeral planning. Now, this one should be obvious. One of the, to a degree, one of the best things that came out of COVID were that people didn't have traditional funerals. And we're seeing more and more celebrations of life, at least in Indiana, where there's not somebody that's over in the corner in a coffin and somebody tries to say how good they look. You can't make me look good when I'm dead. I don't care who you are, right? That's just not going to work. So I don't need people standing over me saying that doesn't he look good? What I would much rather is my friends and my family be able to come together and show pictures, talk about the things that I did, the craziness of my life, and you do it your way, but don't hide what your opinion is. Now, as many people have reminded me, Joe, you're dead. The funeral was never for you, it's for other people. I'll buy that. That's true. And yet, every time I turn around, somebody's having a conversation when somebody passes away, what that person would have wanted. That's why I put it in the big seven. I have watched people, kids, separate families over cremation or burial. And I just don't ever want, I want to do everything that I can to have that Norman Rockwell picture of the family around the table, ham turkey in the middle, dog at the bottom of somebody's feet. That I just want that so badly for people that I try to find things that could interrupt it. Not that they all will, not that any of them will. But if we can eliminate those problems up front, let's get them out of the way and make sure we're good to go. Changing medical focus. Right now, this may sound a little bit different to you, and it certainly involves a little bit of explaining. There are so many things that change in the medical world. I was morbidly, by definition, obese for decades. And if you go into Google and you type in Joe Clark, you're not going to find much about me. You type in Big Joe Clark, you're going to find hundreds of interviews on CNBC and Fox Business, and you're going to say, who is that guy? Because it doesn't even look like me, right? I had a major change in the way that I looked at health. I always swore they were going to make a medicine that would make me skinny, and I got tired of waiting, and so I figured out how to get fit on my own. Now, sure enough, they have that medicine, right? So if you've got somebody that's been big their whole life that's suddenly committed to getting fit, is that a change of character? Yes. And that's where you sit down and have a conversation with them. 90% of the time, I would bet you that's all good. But if you have somebody that is a notorious hypochondriac their entire life, like they go to the emergency room for splinters, and suddenly they won't go to the doctor for chemo, or they won't go to the doctor when they're having a major, major, major issue. That is a character change. And that's something to have a conversation about, something for you to think about. Or you go to the other way at all. I don't even have, I've got a functional medicine doctor. I do my labs quarterly. I don't have a regular doctor to call if I get a cold to get medicine. I don't want to have that person. And if suddenly I woke up and told Barb that I was interviewing 3 doctors, at 59, she should say, "Hey, that's conventional wisdom. Everybody who's 59 should have a doctor." You guys are all probably thinking, "Joe, you big dummy. Everybody should have a doctor. Don't you have health insurance?" I've got great health insurance. Why in the world don't you have a doctor? Because I don't do things conventionally. That's why. If suddenly I started playing by the rules, believe it or not, that is one of those characteristic changes that we need to identify and sit down and say, okay, what made you change your mind? What decision was changed? But we also have to deal with the reality that the world does change. 5 years ago, there weren't GLP-1s. 5 years ago, there weren't some of the medical procedures that we had. Good Lord only knows what we're going to have 5 years from now. And so if somebody starts doing something different medically because the world around them has changed, that doesn't mean their judgment has shifted. That means new opportunities have come into play. And you've got to be able to differentiate those and explain them. Now, the bad news is I've given you enough today for you to be able to argue your way out of doing something off the wall and your kids saying that you've got a judgment shift and you being going, nope, Joe said if I do this, I'm okay. Don't use my words against yourself. I'm here to help, not to hinder, right? Our whole thing is to catch ourselves from making mistakes. If you've not seen my Cheesecake Factory video, I will lay it out for you. I don't know if you've ever gone out to eat where the menu was prepared for you and you had like 3 or 4 choices. You usually had 2 appetizers, maybe 3 entrees, and the dessert was this is what you're getting, right? There is really no stress in the room. The food is going to be great. The chefs could focus on very few dishes. Life was good. It was simple. It was easy. You didn't have to make any real hard choices. The better you did saving and accumulating money over 40, 50, 60 years of your life, the more choices you now have on your menu. And I always use the Cheesecake Factory as the example for this. It's got 218 to 220 options on the menu. It is overwhelming. You could sit there for 3 days reading all of the ingredients. I mean, it's well crafted, right? And life is glorious when you can read all of these options and choices. I mean, it's just beautiful until the waiter walks over. Because when the waiter walks over, now you have to make a decision, right? And remember, it's not that people don't like to make decisions. What we don't want to do is make mistakes. And as soon as you pick one of those 218 or 220 things, you've now said no to 217 other choices. And you begin to have all sorts of different remorse and challenges and issues inside of your head. Um, just just keep that in mind. Part of the irritability factor that comes with age is that our options have expanded, not decreased. And as we get older, and I mean a lot older, nowhere near where we are on the screen today, our menu will shrink again because of physical limitation. Right now, it's because of emotional and prioritization and everything else. We have big choices that we get to make, and they get contracted later in life, not right now. They get expanded. And you can get to a form of irritability when you have to make decisions and choices. All right, team, I just talked for 40 minutes straight. I feel like I'm back at Purdue teaching all over again, and that's not what this is designed to do. So, do any of you have any examples or questions or anything you want to throw out? All right. Like I've said before, feel free to DM me. I get these private messages. At some point in time, we're going to have to get you guys putting this on, or I will do it at a different time and everybody can watch it taped. And I don't want to do that. And I don't want to stop and say, hey, we're not going to do these because I think they're important for us to be able to share expenses or experiences and the things that go on with one another. I don't think just watching videos is helpful. I think communicating is more helpful. But the information does matter. I do appreciate when you guys send me thank you notes. I'm not too old for attaboys. So those come across very, very nicely, and I appreciate them. I just want you to really think about those big 7 things that I gave you. The marriage, the remarriage, if you've lost a first spouse for one reason or another, moving from your home, um, international travel. My cousin, right? He hadn't been married for 40 years, just left for another 35-day cruise. And when he first started doing this, my mother, which was raised as like his brother, was freaking out. Now it's kind of everybody wants to live vicariously through my cousin Jeffrey, because he's seen all sides of the globe going on these boats. But international travel is one of those. Maybe it's on the medical side. This is a great conversation if you're married to talk with your spouse about a major decision that you made or thinking about making and walk through that process that we talked about. But don't forget, if you've got beneficiaries, they may have no right to complain. They may have no no legal or anything else input that they can put in, but they can still have emotional attachment. And we want to be caring souls to people whenever we can. There's no reason to ignore them if we do not have to be able to get everything uh, just to keep everybody happy. But I want you to have happy Thanksgivings. I don't want you having to explain what's going on. I assure you, my mom's going to watch the video and she goes, "Yeah, you didn't tell them that you're thinking about having Christmas in Mexico." Well, maybe, but I'll probably go home because that's where my mom is and that's where Barb's mom and dad are, and spend the time with them and then get back to somewhere warm as opposed to snowy and cold. But that's just me. Pick one of those guys. Use it for you. Have discussions with your kids, have discussions with the people that matter, have discussions with your spouses, and document for yourself the way that you reach the conclusion and the decision. It will be helpful for you in the years to come. We've got a lot of life left, right? Nobody showed up here saying, well, about got this thing wrapped up, right? We're not here to die. We are here to live. And we want to make sure that we age with clarity. And this just gives us one more way to be able to do that and stay in line. So I'll give you one more shot. Anybody got anything to say?
So we have Denise in the chat. She says that she was late, but she appreciates what you shared. And we also have Leonard, and he's asking if there is a link for the Big Seven, and he wants to know why did you select Mexico?
Why I like Mexico? Um, I will happily give you I'll create a checklist for the Big Seven with a little definition behind it for things to keep about. The bigger one of those, by the way, are the investing, spending, and giving. I would worry about those more than the Big Seven in terms of judgment, but the Big Seven are things that just took me off guard in the 38 years I've done this, where I've seen somebody do something and a kid or a spouse was absolutely aghast that it happened or occurred without conversation or talking. Why do I love Mexico? I believe greatly in sleep. If people ask, um, if people ask, I got to be 438 pounds at one point in time in my life. That was the peak, December 23rd, 2010. All I did was work. Um, and I ate one meal a day and I slept 4.5 hours a day for 20 years. And I mean, all I did was work. And I have no regrets. I love it. I built a great company. I took care of a lot of great people and I enjoyed it, but that's all I did was work. Um, the number one thing in being fit is clearly nutrition. People will like to tell you that it's going to the gym and exercise and burning calories. It really is the nutrition, and that doesn't just mean the calories that go in, it's the nutrition. Number two, ahead of the working out in the gym is getting good, righteous sleep. Good REM, good deep sleep. It is very, very, very important, and it is a way to watch if health is beginning to deteriorate. So I wanted to be someplace warm in the winter. And for some reason or another, Florida and me just don't get along. If you know anything about central Indiana, I'm pretty sure nobody was born in Sarasota, Florida that lives there. They all come from Muncie and Anderson, Indiana. I mean, it's just crazy. My mom was there for 25 years and they had Muncie Day in Sarasota, Florida, and 200 people would gather. I just didn't want to be in Florida, but I needed to be in the same time zone as Indiana. I get up at 5:45 without an alarm clock, like clockwork, every single day. I go to bed at the same time every single day, 7 days a week. Weekends don't count. It's another day for me to live life and enjoy it. So I make sure that I get my sleep, and I'm getting up at 5:45. Mexico doesn't change its time. So for 6 months out of the year, Mexico's on the same time zone. Um, I don't like having a lot of arguments with people when they're not interested in changing their opinion. They just want to argue. And when I look at the conversations that I have with people in Indiana, that suddenly politics enters, their opinions are made up. They're trying to persuade me differently than I believe, and that's not going to happen. And I recognize that I'm not going to be able to persuade them with logic, common sense, and fact. And I come to Mexico and I don't have any of those conversations at all. The restaurants go from 5 star all the way down to I eat at taco stands on the corner of the street for 30 pesos. And I'm able to give the lady more money than she thought she could possibly get in a day. And I get to see the smiles and the genuine gratefulness. And the weather. Did I mention the weather? Um, you put all that together and life is good. I chose Playa de Carmen because it's on the East Coast side, so it's straight down from Florida. I'm 40 minutes outside of Cancun. As we get to the airport, we come here. I can see Cozumel from my deck. I love to scuba dive, and there's part of the best scuba diving in the Caribbean is 35 minutes away. So that's why I'm here. I love it. I love the Mexican people. Barb and I have traveled a lot. We've been to most of Europe, if not all of it. Um, and been to Africa. I've hiked Kilimanjaro. We've been on a missions trip in Kenya. I really, really, really love Mexico and Ireland. And those are probably the only two places I will return to. But thanks for the question. And Denise, thanks for the kind words. Appreciate that too.
We also have Leonard asking, why are you so excited about this endeavor and sharing?
Um, One, I think I owe it back to the people who raised me. I really was under 21 when I started in the industry. Um, and the people that I have taken care of for close to 40 years are more like parents and grandparents. I don't know how many funerals I've been and eulogies I've been asked to give, and the relationship that I have with the people that I take care of. They taught me so many things. They kept me married. They helped me raise my daughters. I understood money. They understood life. They were almost always 20, 25 years older than me. And I thought I had it all worked out. Um, I thought I understood helping people complete their financial journey. And when some of the stuff started happening about 10 years ago, I had a guy, and you can go to Legacies Lost in the Classroom. I talk about some of these, but I a kid didn't show up for Thanksgiving, and I got a call on Monday morning, and he disinherited his child and the grandchildren because they didn't show up for Thanksgiving. And I'd taken care of this guy for 20 years. There was always arguments between them. I get it. It wasn't a perfect environment, but it certainly wasn't that degree. It was something had happened. So the challenges and the destruction that I've seen, and really in the legal world, um, it's their posture that they take. If you were in the workshop last night, I talked about it. When I brought these problems to the legal world, the first one said, Joe, what you have in your trust already solves this problem. And I had countless numbers of families where I watched what the attorney said, this fixed it, not fix it. It did not work. And I don't care if the mechanism exists, but the process doesn't, it doesn't work. And I couldn't accept that. The second attorney tried to explain taxes to me, and I do tax planning for a living. This was not a tax question. And then the third one said, Joe, you're right, but it can't be solved. And yes, this can be solved with guardrails and things that's properly put into documents. So there are things, Leonard, in life where somebody has to be serious enough to take on a system where they don't have to gain. We're doing real well. There's almost 800 members in the school now. The workshop is good. The systems that I built around it are good. But I do this I guess I'm compelled um, to teach people that are willing to listen that all of our bodies, just our knees and hair, and backs age. And here's what you do with it. Here's how you change your golf swing. It doesn't mean you quit golf. It doesn't mean we quit life. It doesn't mean we quit making decisions. We just adjust a little bit. And I think that's what drives me. Thank you. That's a great question. Anything else? All right. I'm going to go try a new Mexican restaurant, and I'll be back in Indiana tomorrow. We'll have the Cup of Joe next Tuesday night, same bat time, same bat channel. And I look forward to seeing you. Send me messages, ask questions, and hope to see you all again next week. Take care.